I know it. Hold ye your peace. Verse 4. And Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho. Verse 5. And the sons of the prophet that were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, knowest thou that the Lord will take the master from thy head today? And he answered, yea, I know it. Hold ye your peace. Verse number 6 says, and Elijah said to him, tarry here, I pray thee here, for the Lord has sent me to Jordan. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And they two went on. Verse 7. Then the 50 men and the 50 men of the sons of the prophet went and stood and viewed afar off, and they too stood by Jordan. Verse number 8. And Elisha took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they two went over on the dry land. Verse 9. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I will be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. Verse 10. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. Verse 11. And it came to pass that as they still went on and talked, and behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elisha went up with whirlwind into heaven. Verse 12 and the last. And Elisha saw it and cried, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his clothes and rent them into pieces.
Thank you very much. That was a relatively long reading. I didn't think it would be. I believe most of us have heard that passage read before. If you look carefully at that passage, several things will come to mind. Number one that came to my mind as I was preparing this lesson is that it appears that Elijah didn't want Elisha to succeed him. Does it? I believe so. When you look at that passage critically, you will see that at the very first instant, Elijah knew he was going to die. Didn't he? From the passage we've just heard read, he knew that the time was coming, he was going to be taken off, he was going to leave this earth. Not only did Elijah know he was going to be taken away, the sons of the prophets at Bethel knew. Because the minute that they saw Elisha, they told him, do you know what's going to happen? Your master is going to be taken off. Who else knew? The sons of the prophets at Jericho, they also knew. The 50 men that were with them knew. So it was not a surprising thing. Everybody knew that Elisha or that Elijah was about to be taken off. Or at least the prophets, those that were endowed with this spiritual gift of foreknowledge at that time knew it. So how come then that Elijah, knowing very well that, if you look at verse 10, that whoever saw him taken up will get whatever he asked for, worked so hard to stop Elisha from seeing him while he was being taken off? Why? Think about it. Was it perhaps wicked and didn't want or had somebody else in mind he wanted to hand over to? I know this is not Sunday school and you cannot give me your feedback, but I think it is a little bit like what Jesus Christ did in the book of John, chapter 21, at verse 17, when he asked Peter, Simon, do you love me? Did Jesus know whether Simon loved him or not? He knew. Jesus was all-knowing. In fact, the second time Jesus asked Simon, Simon was like, okay, why are you asking me this? Do you love me? And the third time that Jesus asked Simon, what did Simon say? We know. Simon said, you know whether I love you or not. So this question you're asking wasn't so much that Jesus wanted the knowledge, but Jesus wanted what? To hear Peter himself affirm of it. So to a small extent, perhaps Elijah wasn't just interested in dismissing Elisha, but wanted to see how much Elisha desired the mantle. It is important to note that in everyday life, we will have distractions. We will have things or reasons not to do something. The story is told of the child that said, oh, I can't go to school because I don't have a school bag, or I don't have school shoes. And another one that goes to school, what? Barefooted, not complaining, just happy that they will be received in school. At the NCI here, it's so unfortunate, but at sometimes we have to do feed drive, and students that their parents have not paid their fees are sent away. And sometimes it is sad when you see a child that knows that they were sent away yesterday. They will likely be sent away today. But they do what? They still come to school. They come and they will stay at the gate. And tomorrow they will come again. By chance, today they will let us in. Whereas there are some that, we now have excuse not to go to school. We have been given warning of feed drive. No feed drive, just warning of feed drive. We have enough excuse to do what? To stay back home. So you see Elisha here having a direct command from his boss saying, do what? Stay back. Wait. Don't follow me to Bethel. I want to go check something in Bethel. I'll be back tomorrow. What do you think that a good servant should do when they are given a direct command from their master? Accept it, right? But at that point, what did Elisha say? Say, as the Lord lives and as I am alive, you are not going to stop me from doing what? From seeing you. And it's important because to a great extent, all that we have read in those 12 verses was nothing but to test the resolve of Elisha. It is important that we understand that in life we may not have somebody directly telling us, don't go to school. But I can tell you this, we will have enough things that will try to stop us from going to school. But if we are resolved to go, then we will definitely get what we want out of school. It's important to understand that in pursuit of leadership, that we will have distractions. This is not just seen in Elisha and Elijah's case. You will see it if you look at almost all the great men in the Old Testament that assumed or received the mantle of leadership, that they had to work to overcome great obstacles. Look at men like Joseph, Samuel, David. We could go on and talk about people like I have here in my list Samuel, David, Joseph, Moses, on and on. Let's take it, Joshua, all of them. You look at it, for instance, Joseph started out life as what? Just an ordinary little boy, taking care of his father's sheep and running errands. His father sent him to go take care of his brothers that were out taking care of sheep. Then his own brothers sold him into slavery. And then from just being a slave, doing his own job and being very, very faithful as a servant slave in Egypt, his Oga Madam accuses him of something he didn't do, and he's sent to prison. In spite of all the things that Joseph overcame, did he lose sight of who he was? Never lost sight of it. And it's important for us to understand that the trials and tribulations and obstacles and things that may stand in our way should not let us lose sight of who we are. Because as Joseph so wonderfully said to Potiphar's wife, how can I do this evil thing and do what? And do what? I didn't hear you. And sinned against my God. He never forgot who he was. He knew he was a son of God. He was a child of God. He had been taught these things. These things were important to him, and he wouldn't do it. Even if it means I'm going to be put in prison, so be it. And when he got into prison, did he behave like a victim that he rightfully was? No. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. Let's look at Moses. Moses was raised in royalty, wasn't he? Look at Moses there in the palace. He was having it all. Everything was wonderful. He was treated like Pharaoh's child, like an Egyptian. But did he lose sight of the fact that he was a Jew? Never lost sight of it. The minute he saw Jews being persecuted, he remembered, that's one of mine. What's happening? And though he was royalty in a way, he left the good food of Pharaoh's palace to go and suffer in Midian as a shepherd boy for Jethro. Do we see what we're talking about here? For Moses to receive the mantle of leading the children of Israel from Egypt out to the promised land, he willingly put up with a lot of suffering, a lot of things that were uncomfortable. Same thing can be said of David. David was, again, little boy, smallest child of his father. At times, they actually forgot who he was. In 1 Samuel, when Samuel went to anoint, they asked, are these all your children? And then they said, oh yeah, we have that little boy that is out there taking care of the sheep. And Samuel said, I will not sit down until he is here. And then anointed him. But while we see him grow to become famous and kill Goliath and do all those great exploits, should we lose sight of the fact that Saul was trying to kill him? We lose sight of the fact that he had to flee for his life many times? Do we lose sight of the fact that he even was given a task that was going to lead to his death by demanding 4 skins of Philistines, and after delivering it, he was cheated? All of this is to show that to receive the mantle, we will have obstacles. But we must overcome that obstacles without in any way losing sight The retreat is old. All things, if not for COVID, this would be the 25th year of the retreats here at the NCI. Many of the young men and women that were involved in the startup of the retreat 25 years ago were your age, 18, 20, 22, 25 or so. And if you know the mathematics, that means that right now, those leaders of the initial retreat 25 years ago are around 40, getting on to 50 or more. Are they youth anymore? No. Are they youth anymore? No. They may not be youth in physical age, but they are youth in spirit. But it is important that the youth, the 18, 20, 21-year-old, consider that those that are now old were that age when they took up the mantle to lead and organize Christian young men and women to fellowship like you are here this weekend. And it is important for us to have you, the youth of today, those that are both young in spirit and young in age, to aspire to receive the mantle of leading the youth retreat in the next 25 years. Lord willing, many of the organizers of the initial youth retreat will be here when the retreat is 50 years old, and they will be with their walking sticks coming in to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the youth retreat, and we will delight to see. But it is important that while they do that this program grows in not just size, but in thinking, the kind of thinking that only your generation can bring into the youth retreat. But your generation will not be able to do that if you fold hands and watch everything being done for you by those that started this retreat. All of the people that we will see mentioned in the different keynotes that worked and received the mantle and sustained the mantle of leadership in that time did not do that from accident of birth. They did it because they had demonstrated traits that God wanted in leaders. They had done things that God took delight in, and God looked closely to them and prepared them to receive the mantle of leadership, which is the reason why we will study them in detail throughout this week. There are several other good keynotes that we will be considering during the week. Keynotes, like I said earlier, like the responsibility of the mantle, sustaining the mantle. Oh, very good. Keynote 3, the brotherhood and the mantle. While a lot of talk and much of what I've talked about has been from the Old Testament, it is important to see that leadership and the mantle of leadership is not just an Old Testament issue. It involves the New Testament church today. And that many of those that started the retreat 25 years ago may have overgrown the youth retreats, but they are actually ready to take up the mantle of shepherding the church into the 21st and 22nd century. So as they take up the work of deacons and elders in the church, they need to be prepared to be receiving the mantle for the brotherhood. And I'm happy that there is a keynote to address that, and I look forward to the fact that they will not just come here to prepare the retreat, but they also will learn how to prepare and be mantle recipients, as the mantle of leadership soon will be handed over to the next generation themselves in the greater brotherhood. I'm grateful to God that in spite of the great obstacles that you have chosen to come and spend some time with us here in Uyo. And if this is your first time at the NCI, I pray that this is not your last. Even if you do not come to Uyo for the youth retreat, I have always said, and I will say it again, that you are welcome to the NCI anytime you are in Uyo. The campus church that meets here worships every Sunday in this facility, and we would love to have you, if you are here worshiping in Uyo, to fellowship with us. If there's anything we can do in the brotherhood to help you while in Uyo or wherever, please feel free to let us know, because I believe God brought you here to meet with us and to know us for a purpose. May that purpose be fulfilled in your wonderful weekend here in Uyo. And I hope that you will be ready to receive the mantle when it is time for it to be handed to you. From the things that we will see and learn this weekend, I hope and I believe that the word mantle, whenever it is mentioned to you, will not be a strange word, but your mind will go back to the things that were covered during this weekend on receiving the mantle, sustaining the mantle and the brotherhood. May God bless you as you spend your time with us here, in Jesus' name.
I do not know if to ask for more applause for him. I said I didn't know if to ask, and you're already clapping. You see, why I didn't know if to ask is that because we're in a church setting. In Church of Christ, we don't clap when people preach, do we? We don't clap when people preach. But please, for this message, let's applaud the president of NCI. This is one man, you will never know the things he will say until he stands out to say them. I have taken two things. Let me be honest with us. Until this morning, when I was going through the Elisha story, I never realized the first thing he brought. That Elijah intentionally did not want to give Elisha the mantle. His message this evening has confirmed that thing I thought of just this morning. And to you who is seated here today, he has told us, a lot of us that are in the planning, we are almost leaving the planning. But we are the opposite of Elijah, because we earnestly want people to take up this position from us. At the end of this gathering this year, we will open up, we will send out an invitation for those who want to be part of the planners of the Uyo Christian Youth Retreat. It will be our pleasure to come back here in the next 15 years and still say that this program is still running. Brethren, had we had time, or if it were to be within my powers, I would simply say we forget those other keynote speakers who are coming and ask the team analysts to come back and tell us those things one by one. Because he has left a lot of questions unanswered. Has he? He has left a lot of questions unanswered. And I wish he will be here with us tomorrow or Saturday when we shall be having the panel discussion, so that we will be asking him most of those questions that he has left unanswered in our minds this night. How many people will have questions for him? So many people. You've not even heard him speak. By the time he come back and we want to answer 2 questions, you'll have 50 questions. So hold on. Thank you so much, the president of Nigerian Christian Institute. We are always pleased to have you with us. We've always been having you. The reward of preachers and teachers, they say, is in where? Is in heaven. So his reward awaits him in heaven while he teaches and preaches to us here. We are going to be very swift. We have like 3 other things to do. The secretary of the CPC is going to come up to give us some announcements. But before then, the song leader is going to come up to give us few choruses. while we'll get ready to bring ourselves into clusters, the different towns we have, we're going to pick group leaders, we're going to take announcements, and we're going to do the PM devotional before we call it a day. Song leader.
I beg us to rise as we take the song. All glory be to Christ. Should nothing of our efforts stand, should nothing of our efforts stand, no legacy survive, unless the Lord does raise the house in vain, it builders strive. To you who boast tomorrow's gain, tell me what is your life amidst like vanishes at dawn. All glory be to Christ. All glory be to Christ our King. All glory be to Christ. His rule and reign will ever sing. All glory be to Christ. His will be done. His kingdom come on earth as it's above. Who is himself our daily bread? Praise him, the Lord of hosts. Let living water satisfy the thirsty without pride. Come eat of him, our daily bread. All glory be to Christ. All glory be to Christ the King. All glory be to Christ. His rule and reign will ever sing. All glory be to Christ. When on the day the great I am, the faithful and the true, the Lamb who was for sinners slain is making all things new. Behold, our God shall go with us and be our head for song. All glory be to Christ. All glory be to Christ the King. All glory be to Christ. His rule and reign will ever sing. All glory be to Christ.
We are going to take